Hello, Pastor Rick, Journey of Faith Baptist Church. I'm glad you stopped by today. Hey, I want to talk to you real quickly about a couple of things that can be a little tender if we're not careful how we approach them. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the depression that we might be feeling and what causes it. Yeah, I know we're getting ready to step out. Some of us have actually gone back to work and we're wondering about tomorrow. You know, there's a lot of things that can bring about depression, especially in these days that we live in. The one thing I want to talk to you about today is something called decision overload. Decision overload. Now that can happen to anybody at any time. Maybe you're planning a trip. And as you're planning the trip and you're getting ready to travel, there's all these decisions that have to be made. Did I remember this? Did I remember to shut that off? Did I remember to pack that? And what are we going to run into as we make the trip and as we make the destination that we're trying to go to? Where will we stay? Will it be clean? And it's decision after decision. And maybe you're at home with your kids and your kids are pushing your buttons. They're asking you questions that they know are kind of, sometimes they really want to know the answer. Other times kids are going to ask questions just to push your buttons to see at what point does mom finally explode. Watch. Let's see, is mom going to break down today? I hope that's not happening to you. You know, dads, it can happen to you. You're the leader of the family and you're wondering in the back of your mind, do we have enough? Am I making sure that my family's safe and well cared for? And you have decisions that you have to make on a daily basis, and especially if you've gone back to work. Am I going back to work and bringing something home, am I bringing anything home that I shouldn't bring home? Is this virus, that deadly? What am I doing that's protecting my family as well as making a living for them? We run into all these things, and there's lots of decisions. And folks, decision overload is real. And if we're not careful, decision overload, when we don't recognize it, will take us into a layer of depression. Now, I want to share with you, did you know that there was that has happened in the Bible, that there are several examples of people who have been depressed, who are very godly people, but one in particular I want to talk about today experienced depression from decision overload. Decision overload. Let's see if we can look at what this is. In 1 Kings chapter 18, there's this amazing prophet named Elijah. He has a showdown between 400 false prophets of Baal. He's the only prophet of God. And in the balance are the Hebrew people, the Jews. They're the prize. And Elijah makes this challenge, and he says, whoever's God answers by fire from heaven, he is God. And if it's Baal, then worship Baal. But if it's Yahweh, if it's the Lord God, worship him. And Israel says, you know what, that's a fair deal. And actually, the prophets from Baal think it's a great deal too, because they think they can manufacture something. Well, this is Pastor Rick's short version of this. They fail. The false prophets of Baal fail. They cut themselves, they beat themselves, they do everything they can to get their God to answer, and it's crickets. I mean, have you ever been on stage and think, you really did something well, or you really told that amazing joke and you're waiting for the applause and it's just crickets? Well, now it's Elijah's turn. Elijah prays and he calls upon God, and God caused fire to fall. I get so excited I don't know what to say. I can't talk. God causes fire to fall from heaven, and it consumes the bull, the offering that's on the. It consumes the altar. It consumes the water. It consumes the everything around it. Well, that's enough for the Jewish people. This is God. Yahweh is God. Okay, He's proved Himself. We come to chapter 19, and something happens. Just a quick note: for 3 years, Elijah's been making decisions that affect thousands and thousands of lives. And he's always asked God, and God has always told him what decisions to make. But there comes a time when we are physically and emotionally exhausted, when we are just exhausted, and then we can't make good decisions. And we experience this crushing feeling called decision overload. Well, I'm just going to read the verses, chapter 19, 1 through 10. I'm just going to make real quick comments because I want you to look at it. I want you to see. I want you to investigate. I want you to ask God to open your eyes to the depths that are here. We don't have the time for what I'm doing here to really, really plumb the depths of it. So the first part of it, first 3 verses, Ahab. Now, you got to know who Ahab. He's a king, but he's kind of a wishy-washy king. He's married to a woman named Jezebel, and she's the one who wears the pants in the family. She's the stronger emotionally of the two, and she's very demanding, but she's not a godly woman. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and also how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Can you imagine that? Wouldn't that have been an amazing dinner conversation? They're eating dinner and, how was your day? Oh, by the way, Jezebel, Elijah decided he wanted to, have a showdown with your prophets, and yours didn't come through. And as a matter of fact, he had them killed. Well, you want to talk about pushing someone's buttons. I mean, Jezebel probably just exploded. So she responds this way in verse 2. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Speaking of the prophets that he had killed. Now, Elijah should have been, like, hey, God is on my side. I'm not running from anybody. But here's where it happens. You can see it beginning. He makes a decision without asking God first. And when he saw that, he arose and he ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. Now this is a long trip, folks. This is a long trip. He runs from this evil queen who threatened his life. And he has seen fire fall from heaven and consume the altar. He has seen it not rain for 3 years because God said, pray that it won't rain for 3 years. And it won't rain for 3 years, and it didn't. But he had decision overload. And he slipped into depression. Verses 4 through 7, I'm going to show you that why and what happens of some of the telltale signs of this. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he prayed that he might die and said, it is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Then as he lay and slept under the broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank, and he lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. Interesting. Signs of this depression, signs of any depression, but certainly of decision overload are these. You can't stay awake. All you want to do is sleep. You just want to lay down on the couch and sleep. You don't want to eat. You don't want to drink. You don't want to get up and take a shower. You don't want to do anything. You just want to regress and separate from everyone around you. Folks, if that's happening to you, this is one of the signs, certainly of depression. But it always seems to follow if you've had decision overload, where you've been making decisions after decisions. Ladies, you know that woman down the street who has a blog, and she's been writing on her blog about how perfect her kids are, how perfect her husband is, everybody's always dressed perfectly, and she's got 7 perfect steps and 3 magic keys to the perfect family, and you just want to scream. What if we were to turn the camera around and really see her family? Not posed, but the real her. She's struggling the same as you are. She's just how she deals with it. Guys are doing this with each other. You ask if one of your guy friends, hey, how you doing? Hey, doing fine. Really? Yeah. But if we were to be a little mouse in the corner, what would we see in your house? Decision overload. Let's keep going. Not sleeping properly, not eating, not feeling hungry at all, continuing to feel totally responsible and yet not delegating anything. Elijah had his servant go with him and then delegated and said, now you stay here and I'm going to go there. And I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to make this happen. And it's me. I'm going to do this. All the time, he's not asking God what to do. You see, he got in a habit of making decisions and he forgot to ask God about the decisions that he was making. Does that ever happen to you? Well, let me be honest. It happens to every pastor that's been pastoring a church at least once in their life, where they run into decision overload. And you get to a point where you look at something and it's like you can't focus, you can't see. Are you not sleeping well? Are you not eating or drinking enough? Are you making decisions on your own and trying to just wing it as you go? Feeling totally responsible and not delegating anything to anybody else. If you're in that position, you are following in the same path as Elijah. Let me take you down this one more. He's not asking for any guidance. We've covered that. But then this, in verse 8, God's going to take Elijah to a point of severe testing. And I'm going to show you this. Verse 8. So he arose and he ate and drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. 40 days and 40 nights. He's on a fast. Only the food and water that he had been given by the angel, and then he goes 40 days and 40 nights. Where else have we heard that before? A time of testing, a time of stealing. It's not stealing as in taking, but as in forging the iron and the steel of character. Well, we remember that happened to Jesus. Jesus was in the wilderness 40 days and 40 nights, and he was there without food, and certainly he had water, but without food, and God used this time to not only allow Satan to tempt him, but to steal and to forge that character of will that would go to the cross and would die for people. So God is forging something in this prophet, but the prophet is still depressed. Well, let's look at verse 9. God finally brings him to the place where he's supposed to be. And there he went into a cave and spent the night in the place. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Wait a minute. Why was God asking this? Did God not know? Every time in the Bible God asks a question of mankind, it's not for information. It's for self-reflection. It's for us to take stock in where we're at. God asked Adam, where are you? In the garden, when Adam sinned, God knew where Adam was. He wanted Adam to take stock of where he was. And he says to Elijah, what are you doing here, Elijah? See, God didn't make the decision to run away from the queen. Elijah did. And it has taken him down a path he never thought he'd go. Now he's depressed. Now he's been tested, and the steel of his character is being forged. And here's how he answers. This is a come to Jesus moment, most of us would say, where we finally are broken, where we're finally refined down to the last of who we are. And this is how Elijah sees himself. Verse 10. So he said, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, killed your prophets. with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. There's still the seeds of depression. Through the rest of the chapter, I would like you to read it for yourself. God deals with this. He's using the rest of the chapter, and God comes to him in amazing ways. God ministers to him in amazing ways, and eventually brings him back and heals him. But listen, I bring all this up to bring up that one thing, that one point. Decision overload. It leads to depression. Do you have some of the signs? And you're not a bad person if you're experiencing some of these signs of depression. You're not. One of the most godly men of the Bible, the mighty prophet Elijah, experienced depression because he had decision overload. He didn't know when to delegate, and he didn't know when to ask for help, and he didn't take his requests before God. Folks, those are the answers, actually, aren't they? If I haven't lost you yet, those are the answers. When it comes to making decisions, whether it's in the home, at the job, church, for your kids, first and foremost, ask God. Ask him. If you ask for wisdom, he will give it to you. If you ask for knowledge, he will give it to you. Because he's the one who knows all that's going on. And next, don't be afraid to delegate in some of these things. Now, I know, coming from me, the guy who likes to manage everything, I'm telling you, delegate some of these answers, or delegate some of these decisions. Get some rest. Eat and drink. Take good care of yourself. I pray this has been helpful. I ask God to bless you. I'm Pastor Rick, Journey of Faith Baptist Church. Glad you stopped by today. God bless.